Start recording. All right, welcome everybody. October TMAC meeting, and we'll get started by introducing ourselves. I'm Jeff McLaughlin. I'm a TMAC member conducting today because Joy is online. We'll go around the table again, then finish off with everyone online.
Lisa Jensen, Planning Commission representative.
I'm Greg McFarland. I'm a professor at BYU and a member of the TMAC. Gordon Haight with Provo City. Joseph Gandy with Provo City.
Following a grape is Judy Johnson with Provo City Engineering.
Rob Hunter with Provo City Engineering.
Hey, I'm Shur with Provo City Engineering.
I'm Bob Clegg with David Evans and Associates. We've been hired by UDOT to do the design for this.
I'm Leah Haramia with David Evans and Associates. I'm the communication manager for that UDOT project.
Anson Tusher, Provo City. Golden Golding, Provo City.
Sandy Baccio, Provo City.
All right, Bill, Joy, either one.
Bill Fillmore, Provo City Council.
Joy McMurray, TMAC.
All right, here's to be everybody. Thank you. With that, we've reviewed the September meeting minutes. Does anybody want to move to approve those?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from September. They
All
were
in
very
favor?
detailed. I'm fine with them.
All
You need
in
a
favor?
second?
I'm in favor.
Oh, a second? Oh, a second. I'll second it. I second that we do that, and now we can take a vote on it. In favor? All right, Joy said yes. Appears to be unanimous. So we will move on and turn the time over to Bob and Leah from UDOT, or David Evans, rather.
Thank you. Going to share so people can see my slides. I also need to see my notes, so you're going to have to give me this 1 second. I'm sorry. Gonna wing it, Bob. Are you okay with that?
Go far.
Okay. Hopefully, folks online can see that also. Got a thumbs up. Thanks, Joy.
So far, so good.
Okay. My name's Leah Haramio. I'm the communications manager working with UDOT on this 300 South project. I also was the communications manager for the eastern section of 3rd South and the 5th West project. So all along US 89 have been essentially bothering your residents with intensive road construction for about 8 years on this route. The project is intended to do almost exactly the same thing as the other 2 segments of US 89 did, which is to replace the aged infrastructure of the roadway with concrete. Primarily that involves replacing the big, deep ditch gutters on both sides with storm drain. That those old deep ditch gutters are problematic for a number of reasons, but primarily for UDOT, that's because it allows water to get in under the substructure of the roadway. It's causing it to degrade. So this project we've been working with engineering for, it feels like quite a while, eight months or so, to get the design underway. It will include similar scope with improved, replaced or upgraded utilities as well. So before UDOT comes in and does, 12 inches of concrete, we want to upgrade the sewer and culinary water lines. So working closely with Provo Public Utilities to do that so that there's no reason to get into that concrete again in the future. In the same way that those other sections of 89 have been improved, we are also looking at adding on-street bike lanes, improved pedestrian crossings, and bike crossings at 1st West and 3rd West. Those are in line with the bicycle pedestrian master plans that the city has, and then also looking at bringing the crossing section closer for east-west pedestrian movements on 4th West, which is the only other Provo City intersection that's not improved there with those bike crossings. Sorry, this project was planned to go to the curb and gutter line, and not replace the sidewalk. And that decision is now being revisited. So I can't give you quite the same presentation I had planned to give you this morning. We were anticipating bringing this to construction next season. That is kind of maybe less certain now. So we did hear from the public as we kind of walked through in our open house in August that there was some concern about having raised medians, and that they felt like if we were going to reconstruct the road, that we should also do the sidewalk at the same time. So when we had originally scoped the project, there were a couple of reasons why that sidewalk wouldn't be replaced. One was budget limitations. The other was that there are, from Freedom to University, a number of buildings that are right on the back of the existing sidewalk. And so there's no way to widen, and we certainly don't want to get into buildings where there's functional businesses if we don't need to do that. So this is sort of what that cross section then looks like. It adds, instead of the 8 to 10 foot multi-use path on one side of the roadway, it adds bike lanes on each side. It brings the travel lanes down to 11 feet, and then maintains, I think it's like a 2 to 4 foot median, painted median instead.
Park Street.
Oh, the center,
median, yes.
just instead of the raised concrete
That's
median.
correct. That's correct.
So the original design that we showed to the public did include raised median the entire length, with the intent of closing some of those left turns onto some of the smaller streets intentionally. We did hear a lot of concern about that from area residents. So instead, the streets that will have raised median prohibiting left turns will be 1st and 3rd West. And that is because we are adding these bike pedestrian crossings, right? So we don't want cars turning left into pedestrians or bikes that are crossing north-south.
But you won't have it along the whole stretch.
Correct.
That's the only thing. So there'll still be sections of raised median closer to the intersections instead of in the middle.
Yes, only on either side of these 2 intersections. The rest will be painted. So with the painted median, it is, still the left turn movement is prohibited, but it's not, I don't want to say impossible because folks always prove us wrong when we say things like that. They'll drive right over that median, but a painted median doesn't physically prohibit you from doing that, but it is against the law, essentially. The movement is prohibited. So,
and it does provide the opportunity, if in the future, if UDOT is seeing issues with traffic collisions, to be able to go back in and add those raised medians as a safety measure if needed in the future.
It strikes me that 300 house east of this has the raised median.
it does.
Has there been a lot of complaints about that from city residents? That, was that controversial when it went in? I'm just wondering,
I bet if you live there, it's annoying.
During the design of both projects, we did get quite a bit of pushback on this. On the east side, east of University Avenue, we've seen a 50% decrease in crashes. So they work.
Yeah.
It seems like the most useful place to do the left turns would be the place where you're prohibiting them. And so now you're allowing mid-block turns and U-turns on the backside of intersection.
Yeah, I'm afraid that it's going to be more
I think that you're actually making the road less safe by obviously by removing the median, but also by restricting it in the few places where it would be useful. I mean, I understand the public sentiment. I don't know that it's the greatest idea. But.
Sorry, this is Clancy on the call. I joined. Can y'all hear me?
Okay. Okay, well.
They didn't show up to the public hearing, so.
That's right, I did not see the public hearing.
Clancy, was that you that was also
Yeah,
trying to say
sorry.
something?
Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Clancy.
I just wanted to chime in here because I live really close to the other portion of 300 South. And people, there was some complaining initially, but I haven't heard any negative comments about the other side of 300 South in a few years, probably. I think it's worked out really well and everyone's really liked it. So the transition to medians can frighten people and complain initially, but in the end, it really is a safer and better road in most cases, is my feeling. And I think what we've seen over there.
It looks like you got 4 votes in favor of the median.
So if you can put that in a letter. No, I mean, I agree. I think, I do public engagement on transportation projects all over the state, and change like medians it provokes a response in people. They don't want to change their driving patterns. And even when it is, Provo has a great grid, so it's really not a terrific detour to get around in this part of town if they have to plan their route a different way. But it does sort of provoke that kind of response that it's going to be detrimental to businesses or inconvenient. So we will share that input with UDOT.
Mm-hmm.
The other changes, in order to facilitate that space for on-street bike lanes, on-street parking would be removed. That was a concern for a couple of rental properties. Most, and I think a couple of resident homeowners as well. I think we heard from maybe 4 properties that had concern about losing the on-street parking. But US 89 is a state highway, and I don't believe, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe there's anywhere else in Provo where you can park on the street on US 89.
On US 89, I'm trying to think, definitely not on the south end.
Down by the cemetery, can't you park on the side?
Yes.
Yeah, when you get.
Oh, yeah, for the cemetery, that is.
Yeah.
All the way, as a matter of fact, go outside.
There's a random block there, this is kind of a random block. You can't, on 300, there's only what, about a block and a half that you can park on 300 South.
Mm-hmm.
West of 7-Eleven.
500, yeah. 500, 300. 500 west, I don't think there's anywhere that you can park anymore.
Up the hill to Orem, I've seen people park on the side because the shoulder's big enough.
Yeah, you've got only 15-foot shoulders.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it is just.
We're gonna have our policemen park there soon so that they can pull out easily and get people tickets, right?
Yeah.
We talked about that.
Well, there is and I don't know, I guess I'd have to look, because there are places where, when there's long stretches of non-parking area where there's not a lot of parking, at least from what I've perceived, UDOT doesn't necessarily have no parking signs up and down, at least with any kind of frequency up and down the entire corridor, because it's like, well, if you can't park anywhere on the street in a 5-mile, then we don't need to tell you every 100 feet that you can't. So I'm interested to see how much is really should be parking and how much is just people park there because there's not a sign on the side of the road. So
I think generally the stance is no parking in this area. And again, I think the point is that we're trying to make the road more useful for multiple types of road users, right? Not just vehicles, but pedestrians and bikes as well. So trying to fit a lot of things into a pretty limited amount of space. Because of that, the park strips are going to be less than 4 feet, and we've seen over time that trees just don't make it. So we asked at the public meeting whether people thought the stamped concrete, like what's existing in the park strips on the east side of 3rd South, would be a good choice, or if they preferred like the cobble rock, like what's on Cougar Boulevard, and the stamped concrete was the clear winner. So that is what is currently showing in the plan. There were also several folks at the open house who felt like a more solid surface helped with the limited amount of space that we had on the sidewalk. So if people were passing in with strollers or wheeled vehicles, that it would be easier.
And is that whether or not you redo the sidewalk?
Correct.
So that 4 feet will be there up to the existing sidewalk, and then the rest is
If,
up in the air.
if the sidewalk is widened, the park strip may be less than 4 feet.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that
So-
and see how that's all gonna play out.
But
But either way, that'll be
if there's
the
a
buffer.
park strip, there would be concrete, and we want to maintain a visual buffer between the curb and the sidewalk. So the actual width might change, but we don't want to have sidewalk right up to the back of the curb. We know that's not safe or comfortable.
Well, I think, and too, on this, there's some local streets where Provo has a lot of the older local streets actually where the sidewalk is right on the back of the curb. But on a street this big that has as many signs as it has and the street lamps and everything, you need there's multiple reasons why you need that buffer in between.
Very high speed limit.
Well,
High prevailing speed.
high prevailing speed, yeah.
And there's not gonna be a ditch to catch those speeding vehicles
That's
in
right.
anymore,
Well,
so we
there's a
really
bike
have
lane
to
to
be cautious.
And cyclists.
Yes, but they
Yeah.
can go across the
Is there a
bike lane, whereas the
bike
ditch
lane on
would
other
be
sides
stopped.
too?
That's right. No broken axles this time.
Just that one, and that's the same size bike lane as on East 300 South?
And it's at road grade.
Yeah,
Yeah. Separate.
I'll put my 2 cents in.
I hate that.
I don't think it's a bike lane.
It is very scary, especially on trash days. I have to go around all the trash cans.
I don't ride 300
So
South.
here's the question. Given that limit or whatever, could we put the bike lane up on the curb? Like, I've seen this in Germany and Europe a lot where they'll have, one concrete pattern for the sidewalk, and then they'll have the bike lane and then the curb into the road. What would be the problem?
The challenge that I see with that idea, and I like that idea because it separates the bicycles from the vehicle. One challenge I see specifically on this project is the fact that you have that block between Freedom and First West, where you've got the buildings right up against the sidewalk. So you would be placing bicyclists right up against pedestrians against business access. And I think that creates some very hazardous conditions for pedestrians, especially in those entering it.
At the north side only?
It would be north and south.
Both sides?
There's a pawn shop
From-
on that side too.
It's
The pawn shop has
essentially
in
at
front of it, right?
midway between Freedom and First.
Little red chest
We start to see building
That would make
Puppy
sound.
Um, So.
The other thing is,
One of the reasons why, because we were the ones that said, hey, it's not, this isn't perfect, but what can we do to get bike lanes on here, is because the other project that we should be coming in and talking to you guys again, I think we came at the first of the year with the University Avenue Bridge. So we'll probably be coming back in with that project sometime. But that project is the results of what we need for that project is that we're going to need to put a median in at 5th South to prevent people from stopping at the bottom of the bridge in a through lane. Now, the reason why it was put at 3rd South is because the other anticipation, what we've got at least right now with the UBX bus stop, is that you can't turn. There's no left turns, and so as imperfect as this is, there's really not a good way. You put it anywhere south of here on one of the local roads, and there's not a good way for people to get it on and off and through.
You mean a bike corridor?
Yeah, bike corridor. But that actually may be changing. So I still think, I guess my opinion is that for people who, and I don't see them, a ton, there's definitely other bicycle corridors that people use more often, but I do see people using bikes on 3rd South, and so it gives them a connection. But we may, in the future, depending on how that project moves forward, be able to create a better bicycle corridor. Really, my concern was, if you put them almost anywhere else, at least how it is today, then they can't turn off, put the bicycles on theirs. There's no way to get on and off from the major corridors, especially University Avenue, or get through it. So that may change. We may be able to get a better bicycle corridor here, but
It's better than not having the space, but it's not I don't feel safe in it.
Yeah,
And I'm constantly like changing lanes out into the lane of traffic to avoid obstacles in the bike lane.
I'm an experienced cyclist, so I usually feel comfortable around cars as the cyclist. Like, I'm not the little kid or someone at the bike trailer kind of thing. And I still hate East 300 South. I'll go all the way up to Center Street, or I'll ride 600 South. Those are the two easy peasy roads to get through. Nice broad area. There's places to bail. Unless you're trapped.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go.
I'm trapped against a curve.
It's not a great facility. But because there are those other roads, maybe it's not, it'd be better to have something better, but if that better thing needs to be on a different street, it'd be okay.
What about putting, like they do on freeways, the little bumps? Like, what about putting those between the bike and I guess that's an obstacle for bikes if you
Like
have.
the rumble strip?
Yeah, kind of a rumble strip idea.
Anything that I've seen in the guidance is that you need to have a wider, but this would be too narrow to put anything that could trip up the bike.
Okay. Plus, I mean, it looks nice and smooth right there, but there's drainage grade, and there's the transition. Concrete road is not as bad, but the transition from pouring the curb and gutter to pouring the roadway, that's a different grade as well. And you don't want to ride your bike tire right on that, but you don't want to be closer to the cars. It's pretty crummy for bikes. I kind of joke, I laugh inside every time I pass the sign that says bike lane, like, saw gutter.
Bike lane, no parking.
Question, I don't see, on the cross section, I don't see the width of the park strips. Is it a possibility to take, I don't know what the minimum required park strip width is, but could we take a little bit from the stamped concrete park strip to make a slightly wider bike lane, or that's not an option?
Well, we actually looked at that. I think that's a good suggestion. We actually looked at that. We do have a couple locations where we're accommodating some turn lanes for the traffic, for left turn lanes, like at Freedom, where we've actually had to widen out a little bit. And so we've actually, in those locations, we've already used up the extra park strip width that we had to be able to keep what we have shown as far as the bike lane in those locations.
I think a couple of things to think about too. Rob mentioned earlier there are a lot of signs and like fire hydrants and things that go in the park strip. And I don't know, Bob, if there's other utilities that are under the park strip, but I think if I remember correctly, we went through a bunch of iterations on how wide or narrow the park strip could be, and this was kind of the best collaboration, I guess, between all of the different features. So
yeah, the bike lane on east of University Avenue, I think it's a 4-foot wide bike lane, which is pretty narrow for bike lane standard. We've tried to accommodate as much as we can a 5-foot lane. We do have to narrow down to a 4-foot lane in a couple of are trying to make it a little bit wider.
I have a question about the landscaping. You said it would just be the stamped concrete. What they've done on South State Street, and by where the drive-in movie theater used to be, they just have those grasses and things in some places. Is it possible to put some areas of landscaping so that it's not just a suburban concrete jungle, that there's some green that's sustainable without keep watering like a tree would need?
Need a flowering plant.
Yeah, like, I mean, the section up on Bulldog is similar, where it's got those grasses in there. It just makes it look nicer. And this is one of the corridors through the city that is not a nice looking corridor. And eventually it'll improve, I think, with development that's happening downtown. But I would love for that to not be completely off the table. Like, I totally understand no trees. That seems like a waste of resources. But there are lots of plants that do well without
we'd have
TLC.
Both of those corridors are maintained by Provo Park, I believe, the landscaping and stuff. There were some sort of interagency agreements to do the landscaping, and typically UDOT defers to the city on landscaping for those kinds of items. They don't usually, UDOT's sort of party line is more like replacing kind with what was existing,
right,
when we can. In this case, it's just there isn't enough room. So The only thing and I'm not a landscape architect, so the only thing I would want to know is whether the amount of snow that gets plowed into that park strip, whether it's at that width and that depth, whether something could live, like you're talking about.
I just know that there's some other places where it seems like it's fairly narrow, specifically.
And they're irrigated.
Yep. And the ones on the east side of their south.
I think the issue came up is we had to do some kind of establishment drip system, and that would have to come from the property owners, and some don't have any sprinkler. So where the city is going to maintain it, we'll put a water meter in a valve and we'll water it and take care of it. Or if you have an HOA, but the residents weren't in a position because they would have had to establish a sprinkler coming through their property to come in and tie the park strip. So in reality, there wasn't very many opportunities along that street to do vegetation when we started looking at it.
Anyway, just for whatever it's worth, there's a vote for it. If we're gonna put money into making something look nice, let's put the little bit of effort that's required to.
Vegetation would have made it look a lot better.
Just to help it be a better looking corridor for the city.
At the same time though, like, if we do have people leaving their trash cans in the bike lane, having some breaks in that landscaping, encouraging people to leave their trash cans in those breaks rather than in the bike lane would also be useful.
You know, when that goes into redevelopment.
This might be a good time for me to add something to the conversation. This is Bill Fillmore speaking. The city is under some pressure from the state and various conservation groups to take a hard look for water conservation purposes at eliminating all what you might call vegetated park strips or medians. The perception is that a lot of water gets wasted. It blows off onto the concrete, and that they're, to the extent we do vegetation, they're suggesting some low water required shrubs here and there, but not the grassy strips. And I think if a lot of people have their way, it would just be straight cement.
Yeah, I think we were talking about low water native plants.
We're talking about those grassy ones that you can just drip irrigate and they'll do fine.
The decorative taller
decorative
grass. Grass studs, not green, English lawn.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think the drip irrigation and those, the kind of plants you're talking about can still work.
And I think when we see redevelopment there, they'll have to put in a standard park strip and standard vegetation.
So they'll basically redo whatever is done temporarily.
When redevelopment goes through, I agree with you. The critical thing for that park strip is the signs, the fire hydrants, the street lights. Those are going to be going in there. So if we eliminated the park strip, they would be in the sidewalk, and the sidewalk's only 4 or 5 feet, and then it becomes unpassable for ADA. So it has been wrestled with, and this is where we ended up. I'm not saying it's great, but it seemed to make enough people sad that it worked.
What we're here for, to kill all the joy in the room.
While we're on the subject of the stamped concrete and the vegetation, there are a lot of existing street trees, kind of.
There are about 6 that come out.
They'll come out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the code says, I can't remember if it's 4 or 5, but anyways, we're at the point to where if 4 is their maximum, we're not supposed to put in street trees. And the reason is, so the city used to do it and they all don't last. They're not the best looking trees.
It's a bummer because you can see on the east section where we did, I think we even may have done silvacells. We tried hard to get trees in tree grades, and you can see on the south side, they've just haven't made it.
Yeah, so that update.
Some of them have in more residential areas where people are really.
Why the south side, do you think? Is that the only place you put the trees? I can't remember.
No, yes, so they run in their trees and tree grates on the south side because we had less space, so they were in grates so they could grow kind of in a box down. The north side had more of the low water landscaping. And I think the trees that have died are like closer to University Avenue. So I don't know if it was just more traffic, more salt, less water, more concrete, more heat. the buildings are closer to the sidewalks there. Yeah, if you walk it, you can see in the residential part of the street where there's more homes, they seem to take better, but. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know exactly. I mean, I've been here for 5 years, and I think it was, my recollection is that somebody told me that it was pretty recent when I started, that it was updated to where 5 is the minimum recommendation for a.
Well, we've even
for putting in a
changed
street
the
tree.
requirements in parking lots recently, just as far as trees go, because of the inability for them to thrive.
So, all of this is now suspect. We did have some property owner meetings in July to talk to businesses and property owners that are immediately adjacent to the signalized intersections at First and Freedom, because we do get into their property a little bit for signal poles. And then we had our public open house in August. I had planned to do more property owner follow-up and coordination with the neighborhood and downtown councils after this meeting in November, but with this change with the sidewalk, one more time, I want to really be confident before we move forward. So we will do that regardless, just the timing may change, and then throughout construction, we'll continue the same way we have with regular on-site visits, email updates. We've partnered with Joseph to make sure we get messages out through both UDOT and Provo City's social media feeds, and we'll work through the Franklin Community Council is maybe less active, but there's a few folks out there who are helping us get the information out on their Facebook page as well, so we'll keep doing that.
I have a question unrelated to this project, but related in strategy or whatever. With the bicycle intersection going in at 3rd West, would this be a good time to swap the orientation of the stop signs all along 3rd West?
Yeah.
Is that something that?
Yes, we need to take a look at that. Yeah. We did that along 2nd East when we put in the improvements to make that a bicycle corridor.
Because those stop signs are a real drag. Yeah. Literally. Yes.
100 West will be the main bicycle corridor because that's where the bridge is going to be, right?
Well, so the 300 West will be the bicycle boulevard or whatever you want to call it, similar to 2nd East where it's got the sharrows.
So from the rec center down to.
Yeah, from the, well, even going north, we've already got it. We've already got it signed. Yeah, you got to go through and pass, but to get north of 8th North, we tried to make it as smooth as we could by putting in some additional concrete to make the turns easier and stuff a year or two ago. But anyways, yeah. So going all the way down to the Amtrak station will be a bicycle boulevard. So that's what that one is gonna. I guess when we can put together money to do improvements, we want it to look similar to 2nd East with putting in the bulb outs along that corridor. First West is as much an overall active transportation. We expect a lot of pedestrians because the way that it's that land use is with the downtown, between the downtown and the transportation oriented development zones. I think I've been told that there's could be as many as 20,000 people living on that corridor going up and down both sides. And so we expect a lot of that one has, yes, it has bicycle facilities, but it also has, on one side, it has 12.5-foot sidewalks, like a big pedestrian way. So we expect that to be heavily.
So will it be like 3rd West and 2nd East, where there's a dedicated bike lane all the way up, or is it just going to be like a feeder one to get them from that pedestrian overpass to wherever they're going?
We have looked at it 2 ways, and the hard improvements are the same. It's a matter of which way we strike. So what's shown in there right now is to actually have dedicated bike lanes that are off from the separated from the traffic. And I think there's probably going to be enough traffic to where that's going to be the recommended thing. We want to keep it a lower, keep the speeds low. Hopefully we have a lot of bulb outs, and we have parking, hard infrastructure that comes close to it to try to encourage it to stay low. And then especially with blocking it off there on 3rd South, shouldn't get a lot of through traffic, But there's, even with those same hard improvements, we could do it to where it could be Sharrow.
But it will definitely be bike friendly and pedestrian friendly, it sounds like, all the way up.
All the way up. Yep.
I say we're past our 1 hour mark, so I don't know how much more you have.
I'm done.
You're done?
I'm done.
You hit your point, okay. That's good.
We're up to only 2.5.
And we started at 12:30.
Yeah, we started at 12:30.
Oh, sheesh.
We're doing great.
We're still on time.
That's great. I just want to be sure we have
Lee
time
is
for
still
everything.
done.
Still done.
Okay. Well, then I'll put in, I already talked about that, sad about, I'll just say on the record, I'm sad about losing street trees because they're very good at calming and encouraging active transportation. So calming automobile and encouraging. I wish there were a way to work around that somehow. Thank you for coming and presenting us that stuff. Is there anything changing about Fifth West and Third South? Bikes, how does the bike lane go up to that? Does it go as a dashed lane inside the right turn lane? Because that's, the right turn lane is a big dump of traffic.
Also a big dump.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, I looked at the plans this morning and I can't remember.
My only problem with Cougar Boulevard's redesign was what happens when you get there and like,
Yeah,
once you on the
that's really,
sidewalk at Chick-fil-A.
it's really kind of funky.
One place we kind of
Not just forcing you onto the sidewalk, but there's a bumped curb there too, so you
Right.
could wipe out trying to get to the sidewalk.
maybe,
So one of the potential solutions to that is to, I mean, you still have to go down to the end, but is to put in a bike box where they move out of the right turn lane and into the through, since that's going to be the lower volume movement for cars.
it still involves
Across, yeah.
Yeah.
Other than putting you up on the sidewalk, though, I don't know how you
I
fix
would,
that drop.
just like push myself onto 300 West, but that's because I don't go farther than 500 West myself.
Yeah, but if you're going north on State Street, you would have to just become a car around that corner. Like a vehicle there.
So yeah, there's a transition there.
Yeah, there is a transition there that goes across the right turn lane.
So it's just to look over your shoulder and go for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard, I don't know.
Well, and it's tricky because it,
Oh, so
like-
then you move out.
yeah, and you hope you don't get hit from behind. But I mean, the problem that the Chick-fil-A, like they move you onto the sidewalk to keep you from having to do that crossover. But then what happens is you're given the green light to walk and nobody turning right pays attention to the people in the crosswalk. So you get hit from the other side, right? So it's like,
Yeah, it's the Danish model versus not Danish, obviously it has the curve between the bike lane and everything, but you stay right of even the right turns. That's actually against all the codes that the US has, is saying you can't keep the bike lane inside of a right turn, you gotta push them over to the through.
some of the difference on right turn on red laws. A lot of like Denmark and Holland don't allow right turn on red.
Right turn on red, yeah.
Well, once again, I think it's better than what's there, obviously.
Yes, I agree with that.
And you'll just have to learn how to drive it safely, which is better than not having it there. Default sense of security.
Well, I think doing some kind of improvements on Second South to make it a real bicycle path might be better.
That's bicycling. Third South is not good. I don't know, I'm sure the bike community will have more to say.
I think they were, at the open house, what we heard from the bike community was essentially what you just said, which is it's better than nothing, but it's not ideal.
There's somebody in the chat commenting on those stop signs.
Yeah.
I thought Aaron was, which is true. So that's always a trade-off. So we're gonna take a look at it.
That's something everybody knows, and
Yeah, well,
you
I-
want to really tell people that.
Yeah, and I do know that, Aaron, but the sight lines aren't such that I can always see what will hit me, right? Like,
Yeah, especially in our current downtown areas. Once we put in, more, fold outs and everything, those sight lines will become better before you're crossing,
Yes.
potential car paths, but yeah. Yeah, so those are all things we need to consider, because, I mean, on the one hand, if you take off the sight signs and the bikes don't the bikes don't have to stop now anyways, but at least they know that they've got the through, but at the same time, that also makes it to where the cars don't have to stop, and you may get more, that may encourage more vehicles to use that corridor. So, you know, it's always a trade-off. The answer was, though, we will take a, yes, we know that we need to consider taking a look at that, yeah.
Yeah, they have to yield.
For us, or?
Yeah.
They have to yield.
We don't want to just tell people to just move it all through. Done with us?
I don't think we need anything else. Does anybody want to see the slides anymore?
I'm out.
All right.
I'll send them to Rob in case you want them, but.
Yeah, so what we usually do is we put those with the meetings. So, yeah, he'll send them to me and to Judy.
All right, and so now we will go ahead to the next agenda item and pass the time to Rob for recently completed and upcoming road projects.
Okay, so this is, you know, mainly to let you guys know, remind you what we've done and let you know, well, I guess, let you know what we've done and allow for discussion if you have any input on stuff that we have upcoming. So this is not only to cover what we've done, but also some of the stuff that's coming up with UDOT. So my slide is going to be wrong because I said 300 South will be built next year, and it's a maybe at this point.
Right now, yeah.
So the plan still is, but we'll see. Actually, let me do that. I'm sharing my screen.
You want us?
While you're switching, how much is Provo putting forward money-wise to this, or is this state?
Provo is putting some money for some of the betterments, for instance, like the sewer and the water line. There's a
Street lights, water, sewer, and I think those are the things we're doing.
signal poles.
The entire cross-section is UDOT money.
We're just doing all the road work they're paying 100% for.
Stamped concrete,
They're paying for.
our partnership is in.
So it's the street light upgrades, black power pole, back coated, and then the utilities, water and sewer.
Okay. So I'm just gonna jump right into what I tried to do is group these in things that made sense. So it's a combination. Instead of going through here's everything we've done and then here's everything that we're going to do next year, they're kind of grouped together by type of project. So and some of the projects feed off of each other. So I grouped it like that. But just wanted to make sure that TMAC had you know, an update of everything that we're doing and welcome any feedback that you have on it. Recently completed was our 2022 road rehab project. So that includes all of our mills and overlays, including our development overlay. So our development overlay, as opposed to our road rehab overlay, and our rehab overlay, it's the road is getting older to a point. It's been identified as needing to have a more, I guess, robust rehabilitation project, more than just a steel coat over the top or crack seal or something like that. All right, development overlay is when developments come in, they actually, we have a fee that's specifically for the development overlay, and that's because a lot of times the development, sometimes they will pave. It used to be more the case where we're better at making sure everybody's keeping on top. So it hasn't been as big of a problem the last few years, but sometimes they come in and they put all their main utilities in, but then communication lines or gas lines or something, they missed something as they were putting in their main development, and a few years later, or within a couple of years, some of the other utilities need to come in and actually cut into the street. But the other thing that also happens a lot with development is they build their main infrastructure. So for example, a single family residential unit, they'll come in and they'll build all their main infrastructure, including paving their roads. So they've got a nice hard surface to work on, but then they're rolling trucks over it for the next, year to 2 years to build all the homes. And so what we found is if we charge them, it's a 1 inch, or the fees for a 1 inch overlay, and we go and do that within a couple of years, once they got all the houses done, and we go in there and do it afterwards, that the roads last a lot longer. And so one of the things that I didn't put up here, but it's a lesson learned that we probably need to do a better job of talking about that with the new homeowners, because we got a lot of homeowners that were angry of, why are you milling up my brand new road? And, once we explained it to him, it made sense to him. But anyways, we got a lot of calls of, this is a brand new road, why are you tearing it up, you know? So, anyway, so those are all of our mill and overlays, marker surfacing. And then on a road rehab project, we, if we're doing mills and overlays, then we've got to redo the intersections if they don't have ADA ramps, pedestrian ramps, and we go in and put those in. There's also curb and gutter. A lot of times it's damaged. We take the spots that are, you know, really bad and fix those as we go along and do the road rehab projects.
Can you move the photos so we can see what's on the east side?
Maybe. There we go. Oh, hardly. We'll see how that works with everything else, but we try moving it over a little bit more. I don't know, it may be a problem with my future slides, but we'll see. Keep it there for now.
So one of the things we just did is we just completed a study on every street and all the sidewalks in the entire city. And the city has done a pretty good job. Our average life of road, I think, is 14.5 years. So you want to stay above 12 to 11.
Yeah.
Once you start dropping there, it means you're not doing a good job.
It's really expensive to catch up.
Yeah, and so we're watching this. I think we're going to be presenting to the council some of this information. We have several millions of dollars, I think 10, to fix all the sidewalks and handicap ramps in the city. If prices don't go up and they don't keep breaking, why would go through the next 20 years fixing them? So it's kind of always catch up.
We don't have that money on hand. That's how much it would
That's
take.
the cost.
That's the cost.
We use about $500,000, so you figure a $10 million project, that's 20 years to get it done. So I just wanted to give you we didn't get $10 million.
Congrats.
So we'll be using that in our evaluate. Oh, well, he's already talked. Oh,
yeah.
I jumped the game.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, so that's our road rehab. We also had this year's sidewalk project. We also do a project specifically on repairing sidewalk deficiencies. This year, we focused on the south Provo neighborhood. Now we have this problem all over the city, but especially in South Provo, we had an especially bad condition of it. It's old enough to where ADA standards were not in place, and so it really had almost no ADA ramps.
How many years I pushed a stroller down 1350 East, and my kids rode scooters down 1350 East because it was not possible to do what you
get on the
made
knock,
possible. So I'm celebrating it, even though I didn't benefit from it. So great.
So, yeah, so we focused on 1350 because that is a main corridor, and then fixing some of the different ways that people get to Provost Elementary back here.
I'm really glad that you did this. Like, let's go into a neighborhood and renovate like the whole thing in a neighborhood instead of like doing one intersection here and one intersection. Like, I think it's a better strategy for improving things overall.
So we're looking at different ways that we can do things because I think there's the two things. Sometimes the focus is, and where we can do it, do everything in or at least major corridors. I don't know. We don't have enough money to do. There's enough. Older infrastructure, it's hard to do everything within a neighborhood, even in just 1 year. But doing these focused ones, sometimes we still do the one here and the one there because there's something missing specific to the biggest one that'll keep us doing that. Sometimes at least is fixing particular safe route deficiencies. So, but for the most part, I think you're correct. You're doing it like this, where you're doing a whole corridor, whole neighborhood all at once is a good way to go. And then, just as Gordon was saying, we've got the draft, and we're going to tweak some things on especially with this year with the prices going crazy. We needed to update some of the stuff that we had given them at the beginning of the year to make as assumptions for pricing. We looked back at it and said, yeah, now that 9 months later, those are not the prices anymore. So we're fixing that, and then we'll do some presentations here, but. These include a condition assessment. We've done one about every 5 years for pavement, but one that we haven't done is we keep a list internally that's actually pretty robust. We thought that we were going to see a lot more if we did a thorough assessment, and it actually ends up that we have a pretty good list, but it's good to have the LTAP group go through and do a more thorough assessment of all of our sidewalks. But that was the first year that we had an outside group look at all of our sidewalks, and so they were marking down anything from ADA ramps that are missing or don't have the panels, you know, that are insufficient, to offsets in the sidewalks that are a tripping hazard, to spalling, you know. So they're looking at basically anything. They did not. So what they give us, I want to caution, and then we'll say the same thing to the city council when we meet with them. What they look at, what this group looks at, is deficiencies in the existing sidewalk. There are gaps, large gaps, you know, places where we don't have sidewalk. That's not what this group assesses. They assess saying, if you have a sidewalk, we will tell you where your deficiencies are. So,
deficiencies like cracks and bulges and stuff like that needs to be fixed.
Yep, anything that needs to be fixed to make it walkable, like I said, including ADA ramps, like you're saying. I mean, without those ADA ramps, you're in a stroller, you're in a wheelchair, you're on, you know, a kid on a bike, you're not passing it. So they marked it all. So we're going through, and then so they looked at the condition. They did an analysis of, based off of our current funding, how many years it would take, and then they'll include recommendations, or do include recommendations of what budget we would need to really, you know, keep on top of things, especially with the pavement. The longer you go without maintaining, the more expensive it becomes in the end. So you want to keep your good roads good, because if you let them go bad, then it becomes astronomically more expensive to fix all of them.
What's the difference in life expectancy between arterial and a neighborhood road? Do they last the same amount of time if they have less traffic?
Because the pavement's the design, they're intended to last roughly the same length of time, even with additional traffic.
The infrastructure is cheaper for the less traveled
We do local roads as a different cross section, and you do have to watch your treatment. We'll do a little more treatment on the wear surface will change, but the structure will stay the same.
Yeah. So a brand new road in general, the kind of general assumption is that it lasts 20 years. And so you're trying to keep, you know, your roads. So the average of being 14 is actually, that's really good. Because obviously not every road is brand new.
I've lived here for 26 years, and they only replaced our road 4 years ago.
Yeah. So the city used to,
cracks.
yeah. Well, in the city, the way that it used to fund the road rehab, so partly with B&C funds, but we're also trying to do CIP, big projects with those same funds. And so they do bonds and do kind of big projects, and then let it go for a while as they were paying back the bonds, and then do big projects. And it just wasn't sustainable, because, like I said, the longer you leave a road without doing stuff, the worse it becomes, and the more expensive it becomes. And so now we have the transportation fee that comes in your monthly bill, and we've been doing a lot better on keeping up with things since. All right. So we just completed Lakeview Parkway Phase 4. So this connects Center Street over to 620 North. That just opened maybe 2 weeks ago. Includes, so that is a full build out. It didn't make sense to build half a bridge like we built, only half the asphalt on some sections of Lakeview Parkway. So it's a full build out. It's a full width all the way from Center Street up to 620 North. And what we're trying to do here, so this is a regional thing, not that is paid for a pretty substantial amount through regional funds. Some, a lot of city funds also, because it is going to be used by us. It's a main way to the airport. Trying to make it a main way to the high school, where it's an alternative to going through neighborhood roads. And then the other thing too is that as the west side develops out, and especially over near the airport, there's going to be industrial areas. It gives truck traffic a way in and out of that area without needing to go through smaller streets. So this will be a good thing when it's done, and we'll continue on.
One citizen, the light timing on that light is weird.
At Center?
Mm-hmm.
So
Center in Lakeview is weird. I don't know if it's just a timed light or if I'm just hitting it at all the wrong times. Or... We've tried
it 2 different ways. So it's not close by any other signal, and we're doing counts right now. Some additional counts now that it's open and everything. But we tried it within the first few weeks that we turned it on. We tried it 2 different ways. We've tried it. so it's free, with the prioritization of the default, going to Lakeview Parkway, and we tried it with the default going to Center Street. Right now, my guess is that, and we're doing, like I said, now that it's been open for a few weeks and people's patterns have changed, we're gonna try it again. We'll probably do it again in 6 months and just see how patterns change. But my guess is right now, Center Street is probably still a little bit higher, but right now what we have it, until we have those counts done, we have the default, favoring Lakeview Parkway, even though it probably has a lower volume, just because that's, you know, intended to be it's the way that we'd like to get people to get used to going. But if it comes, you know, if we get the counts done, and even with, you know, giving people a little bit of time to change their patterns, if Center Street is still much heavier than Lakeview Parkway, then we'll go back to making the default for Center Street. So yes, we understand. Yeah. We're testing it out.
Going east to west, you have to stop an awful lot. Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell that it prioritizes Lakeview, but there's not even a car there, and it's trying to switch back.
We want people getting to the airport on time. We don't want them to miss.
That's right.
So does that mean the Provo River Trail is open again?
Right. The Provo River Trail is open, but, and I don't know, because it's actually parks that's over the trail. I don't know if it's either closed again to just west of here.
Have like a let's all ride the trail, it's open again, hooray party the other day.
But now the Delta Restoration Project needs to close it again so they can put in their.
Right. It's open right there, but then the Delta's starting, and so Lakeview has a bike lane that you can get back down to Center and get over to the state park.
Okay.
Yeah. So in a year or two, it'll be open and it'll be great, but we understand there's a lot of patience that's we're asking for and getting all these things done. But something that's still ongoing and probably, I mean, payment-wise is going to be continue on to next year. When we built Lakeview Parkway west of 500 West, this was all built at half width because the developments as they come in will need to build the north half of the road. So we are the developer on this, right? This is our what's going to be the regional soccer park. So we've been widening through here. Osprey townhome development that's being built right here. Widened out their section to here. And then we, because there's kind of some gaps, what we did is we got an agreement with these guys. They paid us the money, and then we're going to couple that with our funds, just so there's not, you're not in, out. We'll just take the rest of it. And right now they're doing some grading, and then we'll pave this section all the way up to 11th West.
I mean, it swerves. I've never noticed that, but as it gets wider, that means we're swerving back down to the half road back up.
Well, so here, that's what we're trying to avoid. So right now, we actually there's some panels out here that people keep moving, then we got to replace back. But there's some panels out because the striping just keeps you down to its current, half width striping until we get it completed all the way to 11th West, and then we'll actually restripe the intersection. Yeah, at the intersection, right. There's also a signal that UDOT is doing that's going in. They're doing the roadway improvements, and then they'll start putting up the signal right at 200 north. That's 2000 north, Geneva Road.
I was like, wait a minute, that's what we are going for. Shouldn't there be a river there?
2000 north Geneva Road.
That was more like a pulse check.
Yeah, you guys are paying attention. Yeah, totally.
What's that 2000 north? I'm trying to visualize where that is.
City line between Provo and Provo.
So it's one of the places that you can get underneath it's the last place in Provo that you can get underneath.
Across the freeway.
Yeah, underneath the freeway.
Really close to the temple, so people might use that to get across.
So our next phase of Parkway, which at least will do some of this, we're needing to sit down and kind of finalize our plans. There's utilities need to go in here and everything. So we'll at least do some of this next year. I don't know how much of all this we'll do next year. But our next phase, our final kind of phase to complete at least the half build of Lakeview Parkway and 2000 North is to do this. So we'll be working on this probably the next couple of years to complete a half width up to here, and then build out 2000 North all the way, and you can, give you an alternative to kind of get around.
Is that because
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering if this is because the developer is ready to continue with his development plans, or is that completely independent of the developer moving forward with his plan?
So there's kind of two things. So we're trying to complete ours because this is, the other thing that's going to happen is the funding, I think, becomes available in 25, but Orem has partnered with UDOT, and they're actually, UDOT is widening Geneva roads next to the new Orem temple, and that's about where, just south of where the temple is going in is where it's going to, where Lakeview Parkway is going to connect in. And actually, the natural flow will be Geneva will turn on to, you'll have to actually turn back off of Geneva at Lakeview Parkway to get back onto Geneva. It's the 5-lane section is going to be Geneva into Lakeview Parkway and around. So we're trying to complete ours so that they can then connect up to theirs, and then it'll be a complete, the Lakeview Parkway will be a complete street.
What north is that? Is that 2000 north?
So this is 2000 north.
So that would be where the intersection will be then.
So yeah, that's where the intersection is. So it'll give everybody a way to get onto the Parkway from, from away underneath, under our last place here underneath the freeway. People that are coming from Orem Vineyard will be able to go, continue straight onto it. So.
My comment about that is concerns for safety on 2000 North, where it makes that ridiculous S-curve down a hill, and they're like steep grade right into people's yards, and it's like 20 miles an hour blind corner. And do you know if the city has any plans to do anything over there? It's a really tricky spot because of property rights and elevations.
So that is actually Orem.
That's an Orem road?
Yeah. Once you get east of, actually 2000 North becomes Orem's road, once you just get east of the railroad lines. But yeah, I don't think that's, what is it, once you get to Sandhill, then both sides of 2000 North are Orem, yeah.
Which is why it's so much worse and smellier than Woodson.
So I can't tell you what their plans are for that S-curve. I don't know.
If it was Provo, it would be perfectly aligned.
That's right. Just like Lakeview Parkway is this nice.
A Danish bike path.
So if you've ever wondered why Lakeview Parkway is so curvy, it's wetlands. We had to do you had to do the maximum that you could to avoid wetlands as much as possible.
You'll see the Ivory development go after the sewer treatment lift station is completed. So we do want to get the road in ahead of them, but they're really delayed more for the treatment.
They're waiting for the sewage.
Yep.
Yeah, so once that happens, then I think you'll see that go quick.
I actually like that it's curvy because it will help it not be a raceway.
Yeah, no, there's value in
the
how it's
wetlands
designed.
for that.
It's more fun to drive.
We're good with the road, we like how.
Good.
All right. So something that actually Kahan is just finishing up is we got a CDBG community development block grant project of putting in sidewalk where it's missing on several streets. You can't see here. We move again, and you can see down here on Fifth South. So completing the curb gutter and sidewalk in those places on in the Franklin neighborhood. Next year, at least this is kind of one where we'll have to see how the bridge, which we'll get to also, timing on the bridge and timing on this project, because we don't want to shut down this entire area by having too many construction projects going on at the same time. But at least as of right now, it's on our plan to build out, so it'll be curb gutter, or no, I guess it's got curb gutter, sidewalk. Sidewalk along here.
There's no curb gutter on the east side of 100 West, or the west side of 100 West doesn't have any curb gutter.
Of 100 West, yeah. So really it doesn't have, what this is going to become is that 100 West cross section where it's got, so it'll have an 8-foot sidewalk on one side, 12.5 foot on the other side. So the mix is responsible for doing theirs. These are all existing buildings, so we got a CDBG block or a block grant to go and make those improvements. Put in sidewalk here, put in sidewalk there, so there will be complete sidewalk to the bridge
We're gonna put in bulb outs, so right there, they're putting in bulb outs here. We'll put in bulb outs in this intersection, put a bulb out there.
Right. The 600 South will remain open after the bridge goes in, right?
It will, yes, it will remain open after the bridge goes in. Considering their time frame, I don't know that it'll be open while the bridge is being built, but yeah, it'll be open after.
That was painful the last couple months. or when it was-
South, I have a question, since this is active transportation focused, I prefer that to bikes because there's not as many people for me to worry about.
Yeah, that's right.
But getting to the front runner station, it's a little tricky there because you're not supposed to turn left
I do it
in
anyway.
the car. Right, so as a bike, it's sort of like, well, my option is to go around and do some weird kind of U-turn thing on Freedom. No, that's no good.
I just become a
Or go through the
pedestrian.
really weird well, yeah, but if you're a pedestrian, you go through, on the west side of Freedom, they put in a really limiting chain link fence, kind of, I don't know exactly what the correct technical term for it is, right before you hit the railroad crossing. And then you have to go back across.
I just
the-
get
I
in
use
the
the
crosswalk and walk
northbound.
across.
I use the northbound bike lane and go south for it to
Come down
a block.
So what we're looking at, so this is gonna be an active transportation corridor, and we're looking at what we need to do. Really, it's how do you get turning left into here? Because I think we're gonna put bulb outs in here to try to, make that a calmer road too, but really it is, how do you get in here in terms of trying to make that safer? Because this median, yeah, and that's not a city, to make this to make it a standard crossing for the railroad at all, but in particular to make it a quiet crossing, we can't allow any turning, even bikes. There's got to be a hard median that blocks people from
Which is
doing
why
it.
I jump off my bike, get in the crosswalk, walk it across the tracks, and then become a bike again.
Yeah.
And it even says walk your bike on that.
Yeah, it does, so.
I will admit that I don't when I go across there.
But I do, because I have nightmares of my tire getting stuck in it, and I'll be the one
We
who's
have to put,
stuck.
we have to put the signs up there, and if you are concerned, then it is good to get off.
But this bridge on 100 West is gonna have an elevator for bikes, right?
Yeah.
Or strollers or whatever.
Just more convenient to roll for me.
It is, but no matter what, you won't get stuck by a passing train, and that's the whole
But the other
point.
thing too, the other reason why we need to look here, and it may even be actually up here, is because eventually, so this one isn't until a phase 2, so it may not be for 15 or 20 years, but eventually we'll be putting a bridge over here. Our priority is after UDOT updates this bridge is to put a bridge in at 5th West, and then here at Freedom will be the last one.
Another bridge at Freedom?
Exactly like the one at 100 West? Like the same type of pedestrian
No, a
bridge?
viaduct, like a
Yeah, viaduct.
diesel.
Like university.
Because
Oh, nice, okay.
freight trains don't
Okay,
block
okay.
the road.
yeah, that's really what it's for. So 5th West is the bigger priority as the west side builds out. I mean, if there's a train stop there, then it's for everybody exceptionally inconvenient to go all the way up to University Avenue, which right now is not the greatest bridge anyways. So anyways, the priority is 5th West, and then we'll kind of see how those do, but it does show that we should have one in the future at some point here.
I'm all for access, but that sounds like a lot of money, maintaining 3 bridges.
We only have to maintain 2 of them.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Universities, the state,
Right.
probably, still pay for the state tax.
You still pay for it, but we still pay It wasn't our money. Maybe we share.
Anyway. All right, so this one, we didn't know if it was gonna happen, but significant delays and different things, but we're almost there on 3900 North. So this is where the new park is going in, between Canyon Road and Timpview Drive. This is 3900 North, so we're almost there. It's almost complete. Within the next.
Is this the park that was a swap for the one south of Timpview?
Yep.
It's gonna be a nice park. I think everybody's gonna like this, so.
Is this a CDBG project or just a city
No, this
maintenance project?
city capital fund.
This is new asphalt there.
Yep, brand new road.
And those lots are for single-family houses, or?
Yes, there's 4
These are,
lots.
yeah. So the developer was responsible for the street in front of his, and then we're building everything else. There's actually some parking that's going to be for the park that comes right off on the side here.
We put
I believe it does.
I know that's not your, that's not your department.
That's not, I can't promise that for sure, but I'm pretty sure it does. I don't know that Parks does anything without adding pickleball courts at this point. So.
Did the pickleball courts.
We got the wrong people in the room now.
I know.
We're getting the road done, and then we walk away, so.
Is Springville picking up? Is that all on Provo's?
No, this is for us, yeah, even though, so as we tied in, UDOT had us, we needed to do some improvements along here too, but really it's a, I can't remember what the program is called, but it's basically economic development, to be able to turn this into a better, industrial area.
Is that the Mexican restaurant on the far right corner?
Yeah.
Right down here, yeah.
With the chevron across the street from it?
Yeah.
Okay. We're just trying to figure out how far south there.
Yep.
So that road will be mostly done this year. It might be paved, or they may end up having to pave it in the spring, just some of the.
And that's still Provo, this whole map is
Yeah,
Provo?
I didn't know that.
I didn't realize that was Provo either.
That corner.
That corner is Springville.
That's why I was
down
wondering
here,
if
yeah,
Springville
so this
was doing anything to the project.
No, this right here, it's all our road. That's
The
our
bottom
boundary.
right corner is Springville.
Yeah,
Yep.
Well, there,
and across the street is Springville.
That will be nice because in order to ride your bike down there, you either have to go out on a state street for that last little leg, and then we go in on the Mountain Vista Parkway. So now you could
Yeah,
go all the
you go
way
through
through
there.
on Sierra Vista and come out without having to go out on the state street.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, that section of
That's
State
another-
Street is
that was my-
another death
That was
trap.
my commute to the last.
It's another bike lane.
Bike lane.
So we
They
are,
disappear at
this one
any
I was only focusing on stuff that we're gonna be doing next year, but, and it's not, it'll be further north, but we're gonna be doing, the only thing that we can do as a city, besides those on-street, bike lanes that is one of the projects that we, got funded with, MAG is extending that trail. I know a lot of people don't like using the trail, but at least it's an alternative to.
Yeah.
biking
It's there,
instead of
I appreciate
50
that.
mile an hour traffic, so,
It just disappears every time there's a turn lane.
yeah.
So you're like,
600 West will be doing this with a storm drain project. Our stormwater is extending a main line up through, this is 7th West at the railroad tracks. I think they're coming down this way, my recollection. But anyways, roadway wise, we'll be redoing that, which I know, the residents on there it's kind of tucked away back there, and there's not been improvements on that road in
is that
probably 50
actually
years.
supposed to be a throughway between 500 and 600 by the railroad tracks there?
This right here?
Yeah.
So that is, city right away, but there's not enough right away to
I
really
was
make
like,
it a
isn't
street.
it kind of looks like a parking lot dead end?
So this was clear back in the late, I think, well, maybe as early 1900s, either late 1800s, early 1900s. This was a 100-year lease over to the railroad, and at that point, we were left with like probably 40 or 30 feet of right of way. It's not enough to really put a street in.
This area needed a lot of help. These roads were in dire situation, so.
No sidewalks, no, this will be nice.
Asphalt crumbling as you
Yeah.
walked on it.
I mean, this is, it's maybe the worst
This was the worst
residential
I
street
thought.
in.
So that section is still iffy, but at least the north-south.
So we'll at least do this. I think we're gonna be doing
And
some
we do that
improvements
one
on here.
too.
For sure here, I think we're doing this too, but
We're ignoring that one for a little bit longer.
Okay.
yeah, this really, the only people that access it are the car dealer, does some parking along here, and then there's, I remember if it's storage or something, it's gonna be a very low use, but they're gonna do some improvements in front of theirs, but it's really, this is not a through, street that anybody that I can see that uses besides these two properties.
We'll look at that.
The residents care about this street.
Did he have an alley classification for roads?
Not a set section. So we could, I mean, there's gonna be some pavement for this guy to be able to do it. He's doing, like I said, he's doing some improvements, but it's just kind of what we can get in there. There's not a set alley cross-section that the city has.
It'll be a modified road section at the end of the day of something. We don't know yet.
And then next year, Fed Bridge.
All 20.
Yeah,
Keeps getting bumped.
it has to be built, it has to be completed.
by November of next year. So it's getting to the point to where railroad, whatever, oh, I realized I put this too far, sorry. This is not going to the north side of 6 South, it's going to the south side of 6 South. Designed so to where it could be extended in the future, I believe, but it's only going to the south side of 6 South.
What's the point of it only going to the south side of 6 South?
It was so this started off as a $4 million with the thought that it could go to the north side and connect into the building. And it's now a $7 or $7.5 million. It's only ending on the south side.
Sorry, I misunderstood what you're saying. I thought it was going across 600 South, but it's going across the rail.
Yeah. It's going across the rail.
All right.
It's just gonna end on the south side of the
now I understand the point of the project. This is good.
It'll end here, swap out from protection and everything.
He's like, aren't we supposed to cross the
The
road?
rail is what matters.
Pedestrian facilities going in across the state,
Like there'll be a crosswalk
hot
painted or anything?
signal or anything,
So
ineffective as that is, but
there's not a hot signal going in with this project. What we are proposing to do, and we are looking at the question has become that 99-year lease and what right away we do or don't have adjacent to the railroads. But our plan is kind of determined to do anything to make sure that it does happen, no matter what the railroad thinks they own or not. But is to put a trail in on the south. So there's still we need to figure out what the crossing is here, but really the plan in terms of coming from this side of the road or this side of University Avenue is that we'll put a trail in along the south side, and then we'll do improvements at 200 East to get you across to that trail.
10 feet of pavement, kind of, two directional.
Yeah, 12 is what I'm hoping. Again, it all.
So when you say trail, you're not talking about gravel, you're talking about a real trail.
I think you're better off with asphalt, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, the railroad, yeah.
Yeah, they don't want to give up that.
We believe we own the right of way, and they don't have a right to it at this moment. However, they have a lot more attorneys in Omaha than we have in the state of Utah, so they will come after us. But we are excited about that project. They've already purchased the elevators. They already purchased all the equipment they can. It's just waiting to start. We have everything signed. They're reviewing some of the costs again because the subs couldn't hold their prices. So there's things happening, but we just got to move on this thing.
Yep, it's got to be concluded next year.
Otherwise,
what's currently on the south end? Is that just a big gravel pit? I can't remember at the front intersection.
Yeah, it's the
kind of a graveled area.
They basically left the landing pad to where a pedestrian bridge could be built.
They've been waiting a long time for this.
Okay,
So.
awesome.
And you saw the other project. We're trying to connect everything. We want it to have that last mile feel to it. So it doesn't just land you in a gravel.
And at this point, I guess I better race through because we definitely are way over our hour at this point. But we've talked about this. We'll bring it in. I need to have the designers come in and talk to you guys. Hopefully we can come in if they're ready. We'll do it next month. And talk about the University Avenue and Canyon Road reconstruction that's being designed currently and is scheduled to be constructed next year. 300 South is still planning on being done next year. UDOT is going to do, so this one will just be an asphalt overlay on this one. This won't be a big rebuild like 300 South is. It's really doing that. Striping is mostly going back in as is. They're correcting some transitions west of the intersection, but for the most part, the striping is the same. They're going to be redoing the signal here, a nicer new signal. But
1600?
Geneva Road. Geneva. Yeah. We're since that's intended to be kind of a west side village center, we're having them do the powder coated to make it look nicer like we've got in the downtown area, since it's supposed to be kind of the central area for the west side.
In anticipation of something going in there.
Yes.
So when you do this, just west of 6, where you come to the 2 lanes at that stoplight, and then you drive and then it merges into 1 lane?
Yeah.
And you guys are going to fix, that's going to be fixed at this point?
It will be fixed, yeah.
Okay.
It's UDOT, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's going to be a correct transition, yes.
Because I know we've had issues with that for years. Okay, so that's next year then?
Yep.
Okay. Oh,
Sorry. I have a question about the Canyon Road University up by the BYU pedestrian crossing. Has anything significantly changed since we argued about it last time?
I don't
I
know.
just remember that was something you were like, no, this is just this is just an idea. This isn't set yet. But I'm just wondering if any feedback has been beneficial or detrimental to the project.
So I'm going to bring him in next month and we can talk about, what the current design, because the current design is what's going to be going in, not without a pedestrian bridge. So we have.
Okay, so that's not something they're finalizing. They're just finalizing that alignment of the road and whatever.
Right, and leaving us a spot, then we can talk about if we do a pedestrian bridge. So there is a grant submittal in that we had put in before we talked last time. And if we get that, we'll know that in December, and if we get that, then we'll have discussions again when we know.
I couldn't remember if that was something that you already knew you were for sure going to get when we talked about it, or if it was still.
We feel very confident.
Right,
Rob did a good job.
And it was the next level.
Well, it was our consultants, but they did a very good job on the.
We'll know in December.
We'll know in December whether we're getting money to do a pedestrian bridge.
Christmas is always a great time of year.
To get a present.
So the discussion for next month is, because they're designing this at this point until we know that we get the pedestrian bridge. And really, there's not a lot of changing besides striping and.
So the realignment isn't dependent on what you decide you want to do with those pedestrians. No. It's gonna happen.
We have seen a huge increase in pedestrians, so it is creating a problem. And even this change, if it continues the way it looks like it's going to continue, it's just going to get really exacerbated. But anyway,
exacerbated?
Yes, it's going to be really bad going through there in the future. So
blame it on Starbucks.
Yes, I will.
It's a different kind of pedestrian traffic that's headed to that corner than we've ever seen before. More people.
Well, then if BYU puts in their new student rec center, it's over.
Is that really what they're talking about doing? I thought that was a secret. I thought that was.
Oh, we've got a lot of rumors.
There are a lot of rumors.
I want to hear them. We've got 7 minutes.
They're not telling us. They're not telling us what it is. Whatever they put in there is going to have a significant amount of pedestrians, is what we've been told. But it already has a significant amount of pedestrians. We're going to have more, yeah. So there's options that they're looking at, but all of them include a significant amount of pedestrians. Yeah.
BYU is the only Division I swimming team that uses a 25-meter pool. So, yeah, meter pool is probably high on the list of priorities at BYU. They did minor renovations to the existing pool.
That's not our purview.
All right. Unfortunately.
You'll know when we know, because we'll know when we read it in the paper. I don't think we're gonna know.
I know. I keep hearing whisperings in planning commission, and I'm like, so have we heard anything solid about anything that might be happening?
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. I think unless there's any objection, call the meeting to close.
Excellent.
See everybody on the third Thursday of November.
Which is Thanksgiving.
The fourth Thursday of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it'll be the week before.
It will have it.
So we're still planning on it, as long as all you guys.
All the sandwiches that day should be turkey.
Turkey sandwiches. No turkey sandwiches.
That was just
We're thinking maybe Olive Garden soup and salad. We think soup weather has got to be coming soon.
It'll be snowy and it'll be.
We'll see. We'll see.
I had a question for you, Rob. Kind of off the top of your head. Oh, Joy.
Sorry, just before Joy jumps off, Joy, you want to just continue coordinating, I guess, with Bill on via email?
Yeah, let's do it on email. I think Bill just left, and I can't talk very well right now, so email sounds great.
Okay.
Look forward to seeing everybody next month. Thanks, Jeff, for running the meeting today. Appreciate that. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Joy.
Sandy got the